So in my other two videos, I was sharing about how we found out that how we came to the conclusion that we might have whooping cough. But we did not actually find out that we had whooping cough for 2 weeks until 2 weeks after we went to the ER. We found out at our pediatrician visit that we went to. I'm so thankful for our midwife who and numerous other people in our community who've been supporting us, and I'll share about that more later. But for our midwife who was just hearing some of the things that we were still struggling with at 2 weeks, because as a parent you kind of go numb at some point. You're just like, you know, you've been sick so long, you're doing the same thing so long, and so she was encouraging us, you know, you should go into your pediatrician like soon and just have a checkup. And we had been wanting to, our old pediatrician had moved and we were looking for a new pediatrician right around the time when we first started having symptoms, and we had talked to this doctor before we went to the ER, and he had advised us to go to the ER at that point, but we had been waiting for our insurance cards to come in to set up a first baseline appointment with him. So we called and said we want to have our baby checked up, and so we went in, and then it was there where he assumed that we had whooping cough. He assumed we knew. He assumed that the ER told us. He assumed that we knew, and so we went when we went in, and I was extremely shocked. I didn't realize that the test had come back positive, but he goes, oh no, you know, here's the test. It says pertussis positive. He goes, you know, I'm shocked that they didn't tell you. So 2 weeks. 2 weeks since from when the day we went to the ER on a Wednesday, to the 2 weeks we went to visit the pediatrician as a follow-up for the baby, which we've been planning on anyway. We were just waiting for the insurance cards, and you know, it's hard when you're sick. You just feel like you don't want to go anywhere, and if you think I have a bad upper respiratory virus, you know, we just gotta wait it out. We just gotta keep doing what we're doing and survive somehow. Even though in the back of my mind I thought, could it be whooping cough? I was like, you know, okay, we're just going to do one day at a time. We're going to do what we can. But it was whooping cough, and yeah, it was really hard to realize that we were kind of robbed of knowing that it was whooping cough 2 days after. And so a couple things that came to my mind that I wanted to say as a recommendation in hindsight on my story, is that when you go to a doctor's office, the emergency room, and you have a certain reason why you're going there, that it's, you kind of can't be too, like, you always want to be respectful and kind. And yes, as mothers, we often have strong intuitions. We also often have blinding strong emotions. So we want to strike a balance between being wise and listening to people who have experience that's different than yours and training that's different than yours. I'm so thankful for emergency rooms. I'm so thankful for doctors. However, you as a mama can't also just totally disregard your mother's intuition and your experience of your children, with your children, of their symptoms. They might not show all the symptoms at the doctor's office like our children didn't, and many children don't with whooping cough, because it's often really bad at night. If you've been like us doing things that that now we have found out are really helpful in minimizing the severity of your whooping cough case, like Lipsoma vitamin C, and other just healthful things, getting hydrated, having a good diet, where your body is getting the things it needs to have a strong natural immunity, then you might not have as severe of symptoms, and so it can be tricky to know if you have whooping cough or not. And so I would say when you go to the ER, this is what I wish I would have done. I wish I would have clarified that I was asking if they could please swab both my children and even the baby. They said they don't really want to do the baby, and so I thought, okay, fine. Well, they're swabbing at least my 4-year-old, who started to develop symptoms the same time as the baby. And I thought in all likeliness, you know, that's probably about the same, so it's okay if they don't want to swab the baby. But they didn't swab Annabelle, my 4-year-old. They didn't tell me that. I requested that they did, and they only swabbed my 2-year-old, who had been showing symptoms already for 3 weeks. So in what I've read, all likelihood that by that time, 3 weeks later, it's possible that the bacteria has left your system and is not detectable on tests, or as detectable on tests. And so I wish that I would have clarified, asked again, so did you test both of my daughters for pertussis specifically? Because they tested for like 4 things, I believe. The other thing is that I had an intuition after we found out, or after the doctor called us, a different doctor 2 days later, to tell us he didn't think we had whooping cough and to check in on us. Both my husband and I said a couple times, should we call and just like say, hey, so the test result was negative, right? That's why you told us that. And we didn't, because we were like, you know, we're in the thick of it. It's hard. Fifi. Sorry. We're in the thick of it. But I wish that I would have called to check, and that's what I'm learning, to trust more my mother's intuition, not to a point of foolishness, and not disregarding the things that complicate your emotions, which is sleeplessness, which is one of the hardest things about this. But another thing that I wanted to say is there are 2 swab tests and 2 ways to check. So you can look that up online, 2 different ways to check for pertussis. And I also wanted to share, in the 2-week time from the ER to when we found out what was happening, what were our symptoms like, what was going on, before we found out that the swab test came back positive and we did have pertussis. We know Ilani. Her coughing stayed much the same. It didn't worsen. She was still waking up coughing on all 4s. It was bad at night. Pretty good during the day, pretty minor. She's kind of more of our silent sufferer, so she would get up on all 4s and cough, 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 cough. Have some times where we're like, oh, is she breathing? We just monitored her very closely, and she was breathing. And then Faye and I and Annabelle, our symptoms increased. Our cough intensified. One day after leaving the ER, we had a tragic and comical moment. Annabelle has a bunk bed that's above Noelani, and I was kissing Noelani and putting her to bed, and one day Annabelle was coughing, and she leaned over, cough, 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 and threw up all over my head. Oh gosh, the happy moments. Thankfully, I was able to, the baby was sleeping, and I was able to hop in the shower right away and get all of that gross food and mucus off of my head. But then 2 days after we left the ER, Faye had her first throw up from coughing. She was just coughing so much that she threw up. 1 week after we left the ER, I had my first time of throwing up from coughing. I was able to manage my symptoms, I think, a lot better. Drinking water and tea that would minimize my cough. And I'll finish quickly because I want to take this little one out and nurse her. But 4 days after we left, Faye had a really bad day, at night, a really long coughing fit. It lasted for about 2 minutes off and on, coughing, and she was able to breathe. She definitely, she wasn't, she was turning a little bit purple, but, we weren't like, oh no, she's dying, but it was long, and that was really hard.